I'm going to be reading from Genesis chapter 37. And the title of the message today is called Seize the Source. So while you guys get there, I'm going to just let you know a little bit about me. If you don't know, I love two things a lot. The first thing is I love this church. I love this ministry. I love what I get to do week in and week out. And the other thing I really love is Pilates, okay? Yes, I know it. Listen, it may not look like I love Pilates, but trust me, I love it. It is awesome. It is great. There's just something about being in that hot room that like gets me going. It's like a detox. And you know that feeling after you work out and you're like, that was a good workout. You feel good. The gym bros, you might be able to resonate with me here. You go, you work out, and you're like, oh, I killed that. And then, like, maybe the next day, you're like, I'm going to go to the bathroom. And then you can't sit down. You're so stiff. You try to go to bed. You're throwing yourself on the bed. You're trying to worship. You can only do this, but you really want to give him your all, but you can't because you're sore. So what we're going to be talking about is how soreness can actually work to our benefit. If you don't mind, we're going to have a really quick health class. That sound okay? All right, so when you work out, you're putting your muscles under tension. It's slow, controlled resistance. And what it actually does, it creates these tiny tears in your muscle fibers. They're not injuries, but they're small breakdowns. And you usually don't feel it right away. You usually leave the workout thinking, oh, you're fine. Everything's fine. But later, like hours later, you start to feel it, that stiffness that I was just talking about. You guys know the feeling. But what that is actually doing, it's actually your body repairing what was broken down. It's sending resources, rebuilding the muscle, and making it stronger than it was before. So the soreness isn't your body falling apart, it's your body building back. Okay? I'm going somewhere with this. And I think some of us tonight tonight's message is very practical, but I think we just need this encouragement. What feels like breakdown in your life right now might actually be God building something in you. Just like a workout, you don't grow without tension. You don't grow stronger without resistance. You don't rebuild without something first being broken down. And why am I bringing this up? Why am I talking about this? I remember a time in my life not long ago where it felt like tear after tear. It felt like trial after trial, like I was doing everything I could do and nothing was working to my benefit. And I had just got done with the workout and I was like, you know what? I killed that. I did good. And I felt the soreness immediately. And I just kind of had like an epiphany when I was driving home. I was like, okay, I just finished working out. I feel a sense of accomplishment. I feel the soreness. I know things are working. And then later that night, I had something come up with my family, and I was just knocked down. I was like, I don't just feel physically sore. I feel spiritually sore. And the difference between the two is when we feel physically sore, we feel a sense of accomplishment. But when we're spiritually sore, there's no silver lining. Are you with me? Just like muscles, your spirit grows through resistance, not avoidance. And I know a lot of us, we might be in this room tonight and we're walking through a difficult season wondering, God, where are you? God, I've been faithful. Hey, God, I'm here on a Tuesday night again. I've been showing up. Look, God, I'm serving. I'm doing everything that they said I should be doing. And perhaps you heard God speak, but now he seems silent. Maybe you moved forward in faith, but now his presence is nowhere to be found. Here's the good news. God uses our soreness to prepare and equip us for our destiny. We just have to navigate it correctly. And most of us spend our lives trying to avoid pain. We try to pray our way out of it. We try to distract our way out of it, or just ignore it and hope it goes away. But what if not all pain is something to escape? And what if some pain actually has purpose? What if the very thing you've been asking God to remove is a thing he's using to build something up in your life? And let me show you what this looks like in scripture throughout the life of Joseph. In Genesis 37, Joseph has a dream from God, okay? A lot of us, we might be familiar with the story of Joseph. He was one of 12 brothers. He had the colorful coat. You might remember that from Bible school. He was hated by his brothers for this. So his brothers sold him into slavery. And then he emerged as the ruler of Egypt. And through this story, we'll learn how suffering, no matter how unfair, develops strong character and deep wisdom. So let's go ahead and let's go and read into Genesis 37. I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks? Okay, 37 verse 5. I started at the wrong one, but that's okay. So the first point is pain reveals what's being worked. So in Genesis chapter 37, verse 5, it says, Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed to it. Pain in your life often reveals where God is doing a deeper work. Joseph didn't just have a calling. He had character that needed to be developed. And before the pit, Joseph, he's young, he's confident, and honestly, at this point in his life, he's kind of a little arrogant. He's sharing his dreams in a way that causes tension within his family. He hasn't been shaped yet. He's just been called. He's bragging to his brothers, talking down on them. How many of you guys in here are the youngest sibling? Listen, this is giving youngest sibling energy, and I can say that because I'm the youngest. I'm a brat at times. It's because I'm the youngest. When Joseph shows up, we've got a bragger, we've got a little tattletale, and we've got someone who's just talking down on people. And if God were to put him in a leadership position right there, where he's at right now, do you know what we have? We have a narcissistic, insecure leader that is going to destroy lives. So God allows a season that starts to work on him. And let me be clear that God doesn't author this, he permits it. God knows what his brothers are about to do. So in verse 16, it says, I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are, grazing their flocks? They have moved on from here, the man answered. I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. Dropping down to verse 22, don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. What does that mean? And we're going to learn this in just a few moments, but pain, it reveals your patience. It reveals your trust, and it reveals your dependence on God. And sometimes the moment you step into what God has for you is when moments hurt. And what his brothers did to him was honestly worse than killing him. Back in those days, it was everything for a young man to receive his father's name and inheritance. His brothers sold him into slavery. Back then, if you're a slave, you're gonna work the rest of your life to build somebody else's name and heritage. It's one thing to be born a slave, but it's completely different to be born the heir of a very wealthy man and have it stripped away from you because of your family. And for 10 years, Joseph is a slave. That's a long time ago. Imagine from 2016 till now, you're in slavery. When you're sore after a workout, it shows what muscles were actually being worked. And in the same way, pain in your life often reveals what God is developing in you. Joseph had to go through seasons that exposed things in him. So pain has a way of exposing what comfort can hide. And in point 2, this is resistance produces strength. God is blessing him because God always blesses, right? But underneath the surface, something much worse is going on. So think of Joseph. He's imprisoned. He has nothing going for him. So the officer's wife gets the hots for Joseph. This is where it gets juicy. You know when you like somebody and you try to be like nonchalant about it, you're like, you know what, I'm gonna be mysterious about this. Like, I'm gonna let them come find me. I'm gonna just kind of, walk around them 10 times and hope they say something. I'm never gonna say anything to them. Or maybe you like give them a little like on the Instagram story. That's a subtle way, you guys. Listen, I know. Listen, She was not like that. Any opportunity that she got, she was trying to seduce Joseph. She was wearing the right things. She was saying the right things. She had all the good perfume on. And listen, my boy Joseph, he didn't have a small group. He didn't have a breakthrough group. He didn't have chat to ask for advice. He didn't have some inspirational reel to watch. Like, he had himself. He didn't even have a pastor. But this is the best part. He feared the Lord. Every time he was tempted, he said no. And a lot of us, we don't understand what fearing the Lord means. The fear of the Lord is not to be scared of God. How can you be intimate of someone you're afraid of? The fear of the Lord is to be terrified to be away from him. Paul tells us about the fear of the Lord when he writes to the Philippian church. And this is Paul writing to the Philippians, but I also think it's God speaking to us. It says, therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. It's one thing to obey God when you're in an atmosphere like this. It's easy. You're surrounded by other believers. There's the worship music. There's a pastor telling you what to do. It's easy to obey God on a Tuesday night. It's easy to obey God on a Sunday morning, right? But what about Friday night? Are we still obeying God? What about when we leave tonight? Are we obeying God? When you didn't get the opportunity, when you didn't get the job, when you didn't get the relationship, are you still obeying God? Or are you saying, why should I obey you? What have you done for me? Listen, Joseph, for a decade, had everything stripped from him. And then you have this woman that has the hots for him, that's doing the most. They're all alone together. She's dressed to the tens. She goes up to him and says, listen, no one else is here. I'm yours. And he does exactly what the word of God says. He flees sexual immorality. She's got hold of his robe. He runs. He's naked. Her lust turns into hate. And now we're in a situation where she's accusing him of rape. So now he's been enslaved, but now he's thrown into a dungeon. And in Louisiana, they have the largest maximum security prison in the U.S. It's known as the Angela, and it has about 6,200 inmates, and majority of the inmates that are in there are people who are there for 20 years to life with no parole. That prison in Louisiana, honestly, is a country club compared to what Joseph went through. In the Middle East, dungeons were usually cisterns that were dried up, they were underground. The average height was about 4 feet, so unless you're a short king, like you're crouching, there was no sunshine, they were sleeping on bedrock, there was no pillow, there was no mattress. Listen, he was sleeping in his waist. There was no basketball court that he could go to. There was no visitors that he could see. The Bible says they hurt his feet with feathers, they put him in chains, and yet the Lord still tested him. And when he's in this dungeon, the Lord brings the greatest test to Joseph. He brings two guys that had a dream, just like Joseph, a butler and a baker, and they want an interpretation of their dreams. So right now you might be asking, okay, what's the test there? The test is, can Joseph proclaim to them the faithfulness of God when he's not seen one shred of evidence of it in his own life in a decade? Think about it. God says, you're going to be a leader, and your brothers will be under your leadership. He's gone from pit to slavery to dungeon. Can he proclaim the faithfulness of God when he hasn't seen it in his life? Joseph would have been like a lot of us. If I've been enslaved for 10 years and someone comes up to me saying, hey, I have a dream, you know what I'm gonna say? Cool, I had a dream too. Oh, cool, you had a dream? I'm going back to bed, I don't care. If he would have done that, he would have died in that dungeon saying, God is not faithful and God doesn't keep his promises. When the reality is, God is faithful and God does keep his promises. So what happened? He passed the test. He listened. He obeyed. And every single time he obeyed God, his life got worse. He proclaims the dream, he's sent to slavery. He flees sexual immorality, he's thrown into a dungeon. He proclaims the faithfulness of God, and the butler forgets about him, and he's in there 2 more years. Then there's this king that has a dream, and the butler rings something in his mind like, oh my gosh, there was this guy, Joseph, he said he was in here forever, and he forgot about him. So he gets restored, 7 years of plenty, 2 years of famine. If you add up the numbers, it's a lot. 19 years later, here comes the brothers. And some of us are upset when we don't get our dreams in a year. My third point is, you won't always understand it in the moment. So during this time of famine, Joseph's brothers come to Egypt. The brothers, the same ones who betrayed him, they show up in Egypt. They're hungry, they're desperate, they're in need, and when they show up, they don't even recognize their own brother. They're standing face to face with the very person they betrayed, the very person they sold, the very person they thought they had erased from their story. And what's cool about this story is Joseph, he actually recognized them immediately. Why? Time had passed. The process had shaped him. The pain had developed him into someone they couldn't even identify anymore. And at this moment, all the memories came back to Joseph. The betrayal, the pit, the loneliness, the years of wondering if he'd ever see them again. And when Joseph finally reveals himself, everything changed. Scripture tells us that his brothers were dismayed, which literally means they were terrified. They felt guilt. They felt regret, they felt fear. And when they see Joseph, they aren't just physically seeing him, they're also seeing what they did to him. And in their minds, they're probably thinking, this is it. This is where we pay for what we did. Because that's how we think, right? We expect revenge. We expect payback. We expect the moment to turn against us. And Joseph, instead of using his power to punish, he uses it to restore. He tells them, don't be distressed, don't be angry yourselves, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. The real evidence that God has worked in our pain won't just be in what you accomplish, it'll be in how you treat the people that hurt you. For the first time, Joseph has a choice. He has the power to get even. He has the authority to make them feel what he felt. He could replay the pain. He could hold on to the hurt. He could finally say, now you know what it feels like. But instead, he chooses grace. And pain didn't just change his situation, it changed his heart. If pain only makes you bitter, then it didn't finish its work. But if pain can make you better, then God did something deeper in you. And sometimes God does such a deep work in our lives that people who knew the old version of you won't even recognize who you've become. Think about it. Who were you 10 years ago? I know who I was 10 years ago. Some of you in this room know who I was 10 years ago. And a lot of people 10 years later, they're like, Hope, you're at church, you're doing this? Some people won't even recognize you. Sometimes you're standing in the middle of something God is doing and you can't even recognize it. You don't see the purpose. You don't see the plan. You don't see how it connects because you're too close to the moment. But just because you don't recognize it doesn't mean that God isn't in it. Joseph, he didn't understand any of it when he was in the pit. He didn't understand it in the prison. He didn't understand it in the waiting. There was zero clarity in those moments. We often want to understand things now. We want answers now. We want God to explain it while we're still in it. But you don't always get understanding in the moment. You get understanding in hindsight. And some of us are frustrated right now because we're trying to make sense of a season that was never meant to be understood in real time. You're trying to connect dots that God hasn't revealed yet. You're in a moment that feels confusing. You're in a season that feels painful. You're in a situation that doesn't make sense. And one day you're going to look back and what felt confusing will become clear. What felt like delay will look like development. And what felt like pain will reveal purpose. And my last point is your pain isn't just about you. By the time we get to Genesis 46, we finally get to see the full picture. His family moves to Egypt. They're reunited. They're provided for. They're safe. What started as betrayal ends in restoration. What started as a pit ends in provision. Joseph's story was never just about Joseph. It was about generations. It was about people he hadn't even met yet. It was about a future that was bigger than his pain. And in Genesis 50, verse 20, he says, "You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive." Many people, not just Joseph. We want our pain to benefit us. We want to resolve it quickly for us. But what if God is doing something that goes beyond you? What if the pain you walked through isn't just about your story, but about who you're going to help one day? What if the thing you wish you could erase is actually the thing God is going to use to reach someone else, that could send somebody else to eternity? What Joseph experienced gave him a perspective and a capacity that he wouldn't have had otherwise. It allowed him to lead in a way that preserved lives. It allowed him to respond to his brothers with grace instead of revenge. It allowed him to carry responsibility that matched the position he was given. His story doesn't suggest that everything that happens is good. It acknowledges that what his brothers did to him was wrong. But it also shows that God is able to work through those moments in a way that brings something meaningful. And I'm going to invite the worship team to come out. But do you know what Joseph's life is showing us? No man, no woman, no child, no demon, no job can ever get you out of your destiny. His own brothers were the very ones that fulfilled his dream. The only one that can get you out of your destiny is you. Soreness, right? It's uncomfortable, but it's proof that something is happening. And what if instead of asking, why is this happening? God, why? You ask, God, what is this producing? When you step back and you take a look at Joseph's life from beginning to end, one of the things that stands out is that there were so many moments that could have taken him off course. There were so many moments that he could have said, I'm done. I stop here. God, I cannot trust you anymore. It's been how many years? And I'm still believing in something that seems impossible, that seems like it's not coming. There were seasons where nothing made sense, moments where it would have been easier to give up, to become bitter, or assume that what God had shown him was no longer possible. But none of those moments had the final say. Not because they weren't real, and not because they didn't hurt, but because God was still working through all of it, even when Joseph couldn't fully see it yet. But the real question is, what do we do in the middle of the process? What do we do in the moments that feel more like the pit than the promise? What do we do when we're in a season that feels confusing or heavy or unresolved? And this is where a heart of thanksgiving becomes important. Not because everything feels good. Most of the time when we're going through a trial, the last thing that we want to do is give thanks to the Lord. It's not because we understand everything, but we can give thanks because we believe he's still working in ways we may not fully see yet. Gratitude in those moments becomes less about what we feel and more about what we believe. Are you guys hearing me? Less about what we feel, more about what we believe. This is a room full of believers. We've got to put our feelings aside. It becomes a way of saying, God, I don't fully understand this, but I trust you. I know that you're present in this. I trust that you're working through it. I trust that this isn't wasted. And when you think about that analogy that we started off with, it makes sense. When you're sore after a workout, it's not a comfortable feeling. Honestly, it's very inconvenient. But if you understand what's happening beneath the surface, it changes how you respond to it. And in a similar way, when we begin to understand that God can use us, even in difficult seasons, for something that's meaningful, it changes how we can respond in those moments. It doesn't mean the pain is gonna go away. It does not mean that the process is gonna become more easy, but it does mean we can approach it differently. We can begin to thank God, not just for the outcomes we enjoy, but for the work he's doing in us along the way. Because if God is present in every part of the process, then there is always something to be grateful for, right? We believe God's with us all the time. He's with you when you get the bad report. He's with you when you are mistreated. He's with you in your addiction. He's with you in your doubt. He is with you. So at all times, we have something to be thankful for.
Thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed today's message, we know that there are many more you will absolutely love. Click right here to check those out. Thank you again, and God bless you.